Love, at its core, is anything but simple. We often romanticize it, dreaming of ideal moments of the fairy tale version where two people are always in sync, always there for each other, and always on the same page. But that's just the surface. The reality is far more intricate, layered, and nuanced. When we think about love, we tend to focus on the joy, the passion, and the affection that come with it. But we rarely talk about the complexity, the way love can pull us in so many different directions at once. Love is not just about two people holding hands and walking into the sunset. It's about navigating a storm, learning how to communicate when words fail, and finding your way through moments of distance and misunderstanding. One of the greatest complexities of love is that it can make us vulnerable. To love someone deeply means to expose parts of ourselves that we often hide from the world. We risk disappointment, rejection, and pain. Sometimes this vulnerability makes us act in ways we don't fully understand. We might lash out when we're hurt, or we might pull away when we're afraid. Love makes us face parts of ourselves we never knew existed, our fears, our insecurities, and even our own capacity for selfishness. The one who loves you the most may at times seem distant because they are grappling with their own vulnerabilities, things they might not know how to share with you. Love also doesn't follow a straight path. It ebbs and flows, growing in some seasons and seeming to recede in others. At times, the person you love might seem absent, distant, or preoccupied. And in those moments, it's easy to assume that something has changed, that the love is fading. But what we often fail to realize is that love in its complexity is also about growth. Just because someone pulls away doesn't mean they love you less. It could mean they are working through something, whether it's their own emotional baggage, past traumas, or personal struggles that has nothing to do with you. In fact, love's complexity can sometimes look like silence. In a world where we are constantly told to express our feelings and be open, love doesn't always fit neatly into these expectations. The quiet moments, the times when the one you love isn't actively engaging with you, can be moments of deep internal work for them. The love might still be there, even if it isn't immediately obvious. It's important to understand that love also involves a deep connection with timing. There are moments when someone might love you deeply, but they're not in a place where they can fully give themselves to you. Maybe they need time to heal from their own wounds before they can fully engage with you in the way that you deserve. The complexity of love is that it's not just about what happens between you two, it's also about what's going on within each of you individually. There are moments when love has to evolve, and for that evolution to happen, there must be space for each person to grow separately, even if only for a short time. Moreover, love's complexity means that it's not always easy to recognize. We often look for love in grand gestures, in constant declarations, and in everyday acts of affection. But sometimes love shows itself in quieter ways. Maybe the one who loves you doesn't always tell you, but they're showing you in the way they support you, the way they remember the little details about you, or the way they're there when you need them most. Love can also be contradictory. The person who loves you the most may seem distant at times, but this may stem from their desire to protect you. They may love you so much that they fear they're not enough, or they might pull away to protect you from their own unresolved emotions. They might think that staying away is the best way to keep you from suffering, not realizing that in the process they're unintentionally creating more distance between you. And then there's the nature of unspoken love. Sometimes we don't need constant words of affirmation or constant proximity to feel loved. The complexity of love lies in the ability to understand that love doesn't always need to be expressed in the ways we're used to. It's possible to feel completely loved even when the person you care about isn't physically there or isn't saying all the things you think they should be saying. True love has its own language, one that doesn't always speak through words, but is felt in the actions and in the quiet moments. Lastly, love's complexity is about balance. It's about the dance between closeness and space, between giving and receiving. Sometimes one person in the relationship may need more space than the other, and this can create tension. But love requires balance to thrive. It's not about giving your all the time. It's about understanding when to give, when to step back, and how to make sure that both partners are growing individually while still nurturing the connection they share. Love in its purest form isn't about perfection. It's about learning, growing, and navigating the moments of discomfort and distance together. Love, when we talk about it in its truest, deepest sense, is far more than the surface emotions we often associate with it: happiness, excitement, or the butterflies that come with a new relationship. Those are the sparkles on top, the initial glow. But real love, the kind that endures, is built on a foundation that is far deeper than mere attraction or infatuation. The depth of love begins in the quiet moments, in the parts of our hearts that we might not show to the world. It's the place where our most vulnerable selves reside, the place where we allow ourselves to be seen without the walls we put up for everyone else. In this space, love is about more than what is given or received. It is about the trust to be raw, to be open in ways that might be uncomfortable but are necessary for a connection to flourish. When someone loves you deeply, they see you for who you truly are, imperfections, flaws, and all. They don't just love the version of you that's perfect or polished. No, they love the messy parts, the parts that may not fit into society's ideals of beauty, strength, or success. They love you at your worst, your weakest, your most broken. And often it is in these moments of vulnerability that the depth of love is most evident. It's easy to love someone when they're at their best. But when they are struggling, when they are hurt or angry or afraid, that's when love proves its true depth, by staying, by supporting, by offering understanding, even when it feels like there's nothing to give in return. Deep love goes beyond the superficial act of saying, I love you. It's in the actions, the sacrifices made without hesitation, the choices that reflect the other person's needs as much as your own. It's in the small gestures that speak volumes, waking up early to make them coffee before they go to work, listening when they need to vent about a difficult day, holding their hand when words aren't enough. These acts are the lifeblood of deep love, and they don't need to be dramatic or grand. In fact, they're often the things that go unnoticed because they become so ingrained in the rhythm of a shared life. But they are the very things that hold the relationship together, even when the world outside feels like it's falling apart. Another layer of deep love is how it shapes us. Love that goes beyond the surface forces us to confront parts of ourselves we may never have seen before. It challenges us, not just in how we interact with the other person, but in how we view ourselves. The depth of love asks us to evolve. It pushes us to be better versions of ourselves, whether that means facing our own insecurities, letting go of old grudges, or learning to forgive ourselves and others. When you truly love someone, you want to help them grow, not just in the ways they grow for their career or their social status, but in their emotional and spiritual lives. And in doing so, you grow as well. Love forces both people to look inward and ask, what do I need to heal? What do I need to let go of? The depth of love also carries a weight of patience. Real love does not come with an expiration date. It doesn't depend on how quickly you can resolve conflicts or how often you can show up for one another in moments of crisis. Sometimes deep love means being able to wait through a period of misunderstanding, to wait through difficult times, to wait while the other person finds their way. In these moments, love requires endurance, the ability to hold space for someone else's growth while trusting that eventually they will come back to you more whole than before. This patience is particularly evident when love is tested. Every relationship faces challenges, miscommunications, disagreements, emotional distance, or periods of uncertainty. When love is deep, it doesn't crumble under pressure. It may bend, it may stretch, but it doesn't break. Because the foundation of deep love is trust and commitment, not perfection. True love doesn't dissolve at the first sign of trouble. Instead, it digs deeper, it seeks resolution, it aims to grow through hardship rather than succumb to it. Love also deepens as you learn each other's history. When someone truly loves you, they are interested in your past, not just the highlights, but the scars, the mistakes, the experiences that shaped you into who you are today. They don't judge you for your past, but rather they understand it and they accept it as part of who you are. This is part of what makes love so powerful. It allows us to be fully known without fear of rejection. The deeper you go in a relationship, the more you realize that love is a shared understanding of each other's vulnerabilities, regrets, and aspirations. And with this depth comes the willingness to stay. Even when the person you love is hard to love, sometimes the person you love isn't easy to understand. They might struggle with their own demons, past hurts, insecurities, or even mental health challenges. But the depth of love is in choosing to stay with them in those times. Even when it's hard, even when they can't always give you what you want or need in return. It's choosing to be patient, to listen, to help them through their darkness, knowing that love is about more than just the good times. It's about staying committed through the struggles, the doubts, and the fear. Deep love is also selfless. It's not about keeping score or counting how many times one person has done something for the other. It's about giving without expecting anything in return. It's about wanting what's best for the other person, even if that means making sacrifices for their happiness or growth. Sometimes love means letting go, even when it hurts, because you want the other person to flourish. The depth of love allows room for both people to thrive, not just together, but individually too. Finally, the depth of love is the ability to see someone, truly see them and accept them for who they are. It's knowing their flaws and weaknesses and still choosing to love them, not in spite of their imperfections, but because of them. When someone loves you deeply, they love the parts you're proud of and the parts you wish you could hide. And this acceptance is not passive, it is active. It is a conscious decision to love someone fully, without conditions, without judgment. We all go through struggles, some big, some small. But the most profound and often the most invisible ones are the silent struggles, the battles that rage within us but are never spoken aloud. These are the struggles that shape us, test our strength, and often isolate us even when we are surrounded by others. These struggles can be deeply personal mental health battles, self-doubt, unresolved trauma, or feelings of inadequacy. They are not always visible to the outside world, and often the people who love us most are the ones who carry these silent struggles in the quietest, most unassuming ways. The silent struggles are often rooted in things that we are reluctant to share because we fear judgment or rejection. It's easier to put on a brave face, to smile through the pain, and to pretend that everything is okay when inside we are drowning in fear or sorrow. And yet, those who love us most can sometimes feel the weight of our silence, even if we don't speak about it. They sense the distance, the change in our energy, the way we draw into ourselves. But they also know that this is not a reflection of how we feel about them. It's a reflection of the battles we are fighting on the inside. For many, the silent struggle is the internal conflict between wanting to reach out and needing to retreat. There's a fear that reaching out might burden others, that sharing our pain might somehow push the ones we love away. In these moments, the one who is struggling may pull back, not because they love less, but because they are overwhelmed by their own vulnerability. They don't want to impose their pain on others, and so in silence, they attempt to work through it alone. But the truth is, these silent struggles are often too big for one person to bear alone. They can feel suffocating, like a weight pressing down on the chest, like a constant low hum of anxiety or sadness that never fully goes away. The emotional toll can be exhausting, leaving the person who is struggling feeling drained and disconnected. They may feel like they are failing those around them, even when they are doing their best just to hold it together. The fear of being seen as weak or incapable often prevents them from expressing what they need, leaving them trapped in their own mind. Sometimes the silent struggle is tied to unresolved pain from the past, things that have never fully healed, things that are buried deep within. Trauma, whether physical or emotional, doesn't just disappear over time. It lingers. It manifests in ways that we might not understand, affecting our relationships, our self-esteem, and the way we see the world. For someone who has experienced trauma, there is often a fear of reliving that pain by talking about it. And so they hide it, keeping it locked away in a dark corner of their heart. But this silence does not mean that the pain is gone. It simply means that the struggle is being fought in the shadows, away from the light of understanding and compassion. There are also silent struggles that stem from mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, and other disorders that don't always have visible symptoms. People living with mental health challenges often go through their days with a smile on their face, pretending that everything is fine, while inside they are battling thoughts of hopelessness, fear, and despair. The emotional and mental toll of these conditions can be debilitating, but because there is often a stigma around mental health, people may feel ashamed to talk about what they're going through. They might fear that they will be misunderstood or that their struggles will be minimized. And so they suffer in silence, often withdrawing from the ones who love them the most. The silent struggle can also be related to feelings of self-worth and identity. For many, there is an internal battle between the person they are and the person they are and the person they want to be. This battle can stem from insecurities, perfectionism, or fear of not being enough. The person may feel like they are constantly falling short of their own expectations or the expectations of others. They may feel inadequate, even though the people around them see nothing but strength and resilience. This internal conflict can create an emotional distance, causing the person to withdraw and struggle in silence, thinking that they are unworthy of love, or that they cannot live up to the image of who they think they should be. In relationships, the silent struggle can take many forms. A person who loves you deeply may appear distant, withdrawn, or cold at times, not because their feelings have changed, but because they are navigating their own internal world. They may be struggling with the weight of their own thoughts and emotions, and as a result, they may not know how to express what they are going through. They may fear that opening up will make them seem weak or will create a burden for their partner. So they retreat into themselves, keeping their struggles hidden, even though they long for support and understanding. It's important to recognize that these silent struggles are not a reflection of the relationship or the love between two people. In fact, the deeper the love, the more the person who is struggling might feel the pressure of hiding their pain, wanting to protect their partner from it. They may fear that their pain will cause their partner to pull away, or that their partner won't understand the complexity of what they are going through. And yet, it is in these very moments of silence that love has the potential to grow deeper. When you love someone who is going through silent struggles, the challenge is to understand that their distance is not rejection, but a reflection of their own internal battles. The silent struggles are not always something that can be solved with words or gestures. Sometimes the best thing we can do for someone going through a silent struggle is to simply be present. To hold space for them without expecting them to explain themselves, without pressuring them to open up before they are ready. Just being there, offering quiet support, can make a world of difference. In these moments, love is about patience and understanding, knowing that even when someone seems distant, they are not giving up on you. They are just navigating their own pain, finding their way through it in the best way they know how. And while it can be painful to watch someone you love struggle in silence, it's also important to remember that these struggles, no matter how silent, do not last forever. With time, patience, and understanding, the person who is battling these internal wars can find their way back. Communication is the foundation of any strong relationship, yet it is often the most difficult aspect to navigate, especially when we encounter gaps in understanding. Communication gaps don't just exist between strangers or acquaintances. They are a silent force that can seep into even the closest of relationships. They arise when our words don't match the message we intend to convey, or when our emotions aren't fully understood, even by those we love the most. These gaps create distance, not because we lack the desire to communicate, but because the act of truly understanding each other goes beyond just talking. At the heart of communication gaps lies the fact that every individual brings their own set of experiences, emotions, and perceptions to the table. We all filter information through the lens of our unique histories, fears, and desires. Even when two people are speaking the same language, their words can have entirely different meanings based on their personal backgrounds and current emotional states. This is where the first gap forms, not in what is being said, but in what is being heard. One person might say something with the best of intentions, but the other person hears it through a different emotional or mental framework, leading to confusion or even hurt. For instance, when someone says, "I'm fine," it's easy to assume that everything is indeed fine, but in reality, that simple phrase can be loaded with unspoken emotions, from frustration to sadness, anxiety to exhaustion. The gap appears when the listener doesn't recognize that the words don't align with the underlying feelings. This is where misunderstanding begins. The person who says, "I'm fine," may not want to burden the other with their struggles, or may not know how to articulate their true emotions. They may not even recognize how deeply they are feeling until it's too late. And the person on the other end, hearing only the surface level words, may not realize the weight being carried underneath, resulting in a communication gap that leaves both parties feeling disconnected. Communication gaps also arise from the differences in how we express our emotions. Some people are open and verbal about their feelings. They communicate directly, expecting that their words will be understood as they intend. Others, however, may struggle to express themselves openly, perhaps because they fear judgment, vulnerability, or simply don't know how to convey what they're going through. This can lead to a situation where one person feels shut out, while the other person feels misunderstood. The gap here is not just about the failure to communicate, it's about the different emotional languages being spoken. In relationships, one person might crave constant verbal reassurance, needing to hear the words of love, affection, and appreciation frequently. Meanwhile, their partner might show love through acts of service, thoughtful gestures, or quality time. While both are expressions of love, the gap forms when neither person recognizes that the other's way of showing affection is just as valid. The person who needs verbal affirmation may feel neglected, while the person who expresses love through actions may feel frustrated that their efforts aren't being acknowledged in the way they had hoped. The disconnect here isn't intentional, it's a simple misalignment in how love and communication are understood and expressed. Another source of communication gaps is unspoken expectations. We often assume that the people closest to us understand our needs without us having to explicitly say them. However, this assumption can lead to frustration when those needs are unmet. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if they love me, they would know what I need. But the reality is that people cannot read our minds, no matter how close they are to us. The gap opens when one person expects the other to automatically understand their desires without giving clear instructions or expressing their feelings. This is particularly true in romantic relationships or long-term partnerships where both people may feel they know each other so well that they begin to expect their partner to meet their needs without clear communication. Furthermore, emotional baggage plays a significant role in communication gaps. Past experiences, particularly unresolved issues, can affect how we communicate in the present. If someone has been hurt in the past, whether it's from a previous relationship, a family situation, or a traumatic experience, they may struggle to communicate openly or may react defensively when certain topics come up. These emotional scars can create invisible barriers where communication becomes clouded by past pain. For instance, if someone has been betrayed in a past relationship, they might have a harder time trusting their current partner, even if that person has done nothing to warrant distrust. They may read between the lines of everything their partner says or does, looking for hidden meanings or signs of betrayal. The gap in communication arises when the current situation is influenced by the past, and both partners struggle to address the unspoken fears and anxieties that shape their responses. Additionally, timing is a crucial factor in communication. We often don't realize how important it is to communicate at the right moment. A conversation that could lead to understanding might falter simply because one person is emotionally overwhelmed or the other isn't ready to listen. If someone is going through a difficult day or a stressful period in their life, they might not have the capacity to engage in a meaningful conversation. At this moment, any attempt to communicate can be perceived as more pressure, adding to the gap rather than closing it. Communication requires timing, patience, and the ability to recognize when both people are in the right emotional space to engage. The role of nonverbal communication also cannot be ignored. We often communicate far more through body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice than through the words we speak. A lack of eye contact, crossed arms, or a cold tone can create a barrier, even when the words being spoken seem neutral. Nonverbal cues can send mixed messages, creating a disconnect between what is said and what is felt. This is where the gap widens, as the listener may focus on the physical signs of discomfort or disconnection rather than the actual content of the conversation. Finally, one of the most subtle yet significant communication gaps stems from a lack of active listening. In many conversations, we are not truly listening, we are simply waiting for our turn to speak. This passive listening can cause us to miss important nuances in the other person's words, feelings, or needs. We might assume we understand, but without actively engaging, we miss the opportunity to truly connect. Communication is a two-way street, and when both parties are not fully present and attentive, the gap grows, making it harder to understand each other and resolve any issues. Communication gaps don't just cause confusion, they breed frustration, isolation, and even resentment. What's most dangerous about them is that they often remain unaddressed, with each person assuming that their perspective is the correct one. Left unchecked, these gaps can widen until they create a chasm, making it increasingly difficult to bridge the divide. In the landscape of relationships, we often associate love with closeness, physical proximity, constant communication, shared experiences, and emotional intimacy. But what if I told you that sometimes love isn't about holding on tighter, but about stepping back? What if space, the absence of presence, could be a deeper expression of love than we have ever acknowledged? Space in relationships is often misunderstood. In a world that prioritizes constant connection through texts, calls, and social media, we can sometimes forget that love is not defined by how much time we spend together, but by how much tech we show each other's individuality. When we love someone, one of the most profound gifts we can give them is the space to grow, to breathe, to explore who they are without feeling confined or overly dependent on the relationship. This space doesn't signify distance, detachment, or a lack of love. Rather, it speaks to the trust and understanding that true love requires the freedom to exist independently while still being deeply connected. Space, in its essence, allows for personal growth. Every individual, regardless of how close they are to another person, needs time to reflect, recharge, and nurture their own identity. This is especially true in long-term relationships where the merging of two lives can sometimes lead to the fading of personal boundaries. In the early stages of a relationship, we may feel an intense desire to spend every waking moment with our partner, to know every little detail of their life, and to be as close as possible. But as time goes on, the very closeness that once felt comforting can begin to feel stifling if it does not allow for space to grow as individuals. Love is not about losing oneself in someone else, but about finding a balance between togetherness and individuality. By allowing space, we encourage our partner to continue evolving as a person, which in turn strengthens the relationship. When someone loves you, they respect your need for space not because they love you less, but because they understand that you are a whole person with your own thoughts, desires, and dreams. This space isn't just about physical distance, it's about emotional space as well. Sometimes we need the room to process our own thoughts and emotions, especially in difficult times. In moments of conflict or stress, being able to step back from the situation to reflect on our feelings without the pressure of immediate resolution is essential for emotional clarity. Giving someone the space to reflect, to understand their own emotions before responding can prevent unnecessary arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional burnout. Space is also a form of self-care. Love can be intense and relationships can be demanding. Both partners bring their own personal histories, needs, and expectations into the mix. Sometimes those needs can be overwhelming, especially when both people are working hard to meet each other's needs and their own needs at the same time. This is where space becomes not just a luxury, but a necessity. Taking time to disconnect, to engage in activities that restore one's energy, whether through hobbies, friendships, or solitude, is an act of self-love. It's a way of ensuring that each partner remains whole and healthy, emotionally and mentally. Without this space, one person may feel like they are giving too much or losing their sense of self. In contrast, when both individuals take the time they need to care for their own well-being, they can bring a renewed sense of energy and presence to the relationship. In a healthy relationship, space can also serve as a tool for creating trust. The act of allowing your partner to have their own space without the fear of losing them is a profound expression of love. It means that you trust them not only to respect the boundaries of the relationship, but also to have the strength and autonomy to be themselves without threatening the bond you share. Love, when truly healthy, should be able to withstand periods of physical separation or emotional detachment without crumbling. Space proves that love isn't about constant attachment, but about a shared confidence that each partner can stand strong on their own, with the relationship providing a solid foundation of support. When we respect and offer space, we allow our partners the freedom to flourish as individuals, which in turn enhances the depth of the connection. For some, space is not a sign of absence or neglect, but an affirmation of respect and consideration. When we give space, we give the message that we see our partner as a complete person with their own needs, dreams, and ambitions. This space allows them to continue pursuing those things without feeling guilty or pulled in multiple directions. It acknowledges that love doesn't require constant surveillance or control. It allows room for autonomy, personal interest, and individual growth. It also offers the opportunity to miss each other, to long for the moments of togetherness, which can reignite the spark and passion in a relationship. Moreover, space in a relationship encourages emotional maturity. It teaches both partners how to handle their emotions independently before bringing them into the relationship. When we feel overwhelmed by stress or personal struggles, our natural instinct may be to seek constant comfort from our partner. However, this can place an unrealistic burden on them, making them feel responsible for our emotional state. By taking space to process our emotions on our own, we learn how to manage our feelings and deal with difficult situations without becoming overly reliant on our partner for validation or support. In this way, space fosters emotional resilience and mutual respect for each other's emotional needs. For couples who have been together for a long time, space can serve as a way to rekindle the initial spark of attraction. Over time, familiarity can lead to complacency, where partners take each other for granted or stop making the effort to maintain their individuality. Space allows for a natural separation that gives each person the opportunity to rediscover themselves, to step outside of the daily routine, and to return to the relationship with fresh eyes and a renewed appreciation for their partner. It can reignite the excitement and curiosity that sometimes fade when two people spend too much time together without taking the time to nurture other aspects of their lives. On a deeper level, space also serves as a powerful tool in preventing the erosion of personal boundaries. In any relationship, it is vital to maintain a sense of individual identity. When partners fail to respect each other's need for space, it can lead to a loss of autonomy, where one partner feels overbearing or smothered. This can create resentment, frustration, and a gradual weakening of the relationship. Offering space is a way of ensuring that both partners feel respected and valued as individuals, rather than as extensions of each other. It acknowledges that while love unites two people, it doesn't erase their individual selves. Both partners can pursue their interests, friendships, and personal goals, knowing that the relationship is strong enough to withstand periods of separation. Space as a sign of love is not about distancing oneself emotionally or physically from the relationship. It is about creating a balance, giving each person the room they need to be their best selves, while still nurturing the connection between them. It is a quiet yet powerful acknowledgement that love is not about control or dependency, but about freedom to grow, to reflect, to recharge, and to come back together with a deeper appreciation for each other.